Hello and welcome back to Satisfactory Outposts in the Desert. Between episodes, I've done some math and was pretty surprised at the amount of screws that we're going to need to make in this iron outpost. And the first thing I did was I constructed this hybrid tube out to our coal power generators and just tripled the output of our power grid. So before, our 5 coal generators were supplying 375 megawatts, and now we've tripled that. I just copied the same layout of the first 5 in a previous video. The one change I did make was to replace our Mark 1 coal miners with Mark 2, and then upgrade these belts to the Mark 3 belts. So each of these belts is now transporting 240 coal per minute. And so one belt at 240 units per minute can provide for 15 coal generators. That's 3 of our clusters of 5. So this lower belt here is feeding all 15 of these generators in a line. And then I just had to add, 2 more water extractors for each cluster and 1 pump. The setup is exactly mirrored. Now I connected these pipes. I could have left the pipes between clusters unconnected, but I don't think it's going to hurt to have them all on the same system. And now altogether, we're producing 1125 megawatts. Now because we've upgraded our belts and our miners, we're only using half of the coal we're producing at this from these northwestern nodes. This top belt can be used to double the setup of 15, and that's probably going to happen not too far in the future. And I've already started building the platform for the next set of 15 coal generators. But before that can happen, we need to set up our iron products, because we need a lot of reinforced iron plates. So let's take the hypertube back to the main base. We'll check it on hard drives, and then we'll head out to the iron outpost. These hypertube tubes are cool. I'm kind of picturing a central hub, like a transit hub, where we can where the ends of all of these hypertubes are all in one central location, and then we just pick the tube we want to travel to whichever outpost we need to work in. So I did the math, and we're producing 3,120 iron ingots per minute with our current smelters in the outpost. Let's see, I guess we'll go with steel screw. High-speed wiring is one of the components we need to unlock tiers 5 and 6, but I don't think we're going to need this alternate recipe for it, and the alternate recipe requires high-speed connectors, which requires Caterium, which we don't have automated yet. So we'll unlock that. We'll grab another hard drive, get it started. And now we're off to the iron outpost. So I was trying to come up with a layout for the constructors we'll need. We'll need 176 constructors on this second level of our outpost. And that's a lot. It's a lot of constructors. It'll be 52 constructors making iron plates, 120 constructors making screws. We need so many screws. In update 2, it was really easy to use alternate recipes to completely eliminate the need for screws, for any screws at all. But with update 3, the alternate recipes have changed, and it seems like it's going to be harder to completely eliminate screws. In update 2, you would eliminate the screws and the recipes would become more efficient. And in update 3, the most efficient recipes, it seems, still need screws. So here we are on the second floor. We've got our iron ingots coming up from the east side here. And I've just laid out the splitters and mergers to kind of pace out where these constructors will go. It took a few minutes to come up with a system that would allow us to have 172 machines on this floor. For a while I toyed with the system that would allow the full 176 for iron rods, but eventually I decided it was too cramped, and so we'll make iron rods in a really small quantity on the third floor. So screws. Starting with screws. Each one of these belts coming from the second floor will eventually be full. Will be Mark V belts full of 780 ingots per minute each. And with 780 ingots per minute to work with, using them at a rate of 12.5 per minute, that can support 62.4 constructors producing screws. We're going to have 2 belts completely devoted to screws. It's going to be the outer belts. This belt here and this belt over here will be almost completely devoted to screws. We're going to have 60 constructors on each belt, so that will leave us, I think, 30 ingots per minute that are unused on the belts. And those 30 ingots each, so 60 total, will be used on the third floor to make rods. Rods really aren't needed for any part, like any component, in the mid or late game right now that I've seen. We'll just want the rods for, our conveyor poles, our stackable conveyor poles. And they are used in some machines and power poles. So we'll want a small supply of rods, so we're not handcrafting at all, but there's no real need for a large constant production. So let's get started. 60 constructors, all producing screws. We're using the alternate recipe for screws here. That produces 50 per minute using 5 iron ingots. Sorry, if it's 50 per minute and it produces 20 each cycle, it's producing 2.5 cycles per minute. So that's 12.5 iron ingots every minute that we need. And if it's producing 50 per minute, this was another challenge. The Mark V belts, they're limited to 780. So 780 divided by 50, that's 15.6. So we can't have more than 15 constructors outputting to a single belt. What that means is that each of these belts of iron ingots, the 2 outer belts, will actually end up outputting 4 belts of screws each. So we're going to have 8 belts of screws moving from the second level up to the third level, where we're making reinforced iron plates and modular frames. But we're going to need them all. So it's going to be we're going to have a setup of, I guess, an array of constructors here producing screws, and another array directly across to the north here producing screws coming from the other outer belt. Let's get started. This first merger is going to be an output for the first row of constructors. And the spacing is all pretty tight here. Usually I like to allow a little more room, but we have so many constructors to fit onto this level. Like, I thought this level was pretty big, right? For just iron products, I thought we had more than enough room. I was wrong. I was not anticipating 170 plus constructors on the level. Not to mention the 10 belts of products that we'll need, plus 2 belts of ingots to make rods on the 3rd floor. So what we're doing here is we're limited to 15 constructors in a row on a belt. So we'll have 4 rows of 15. I haven't been counting here. Let's see. Using the deconstruct tool, you can just see how many you have. 13. $14 and $15. Now, here's where things get a little interesting. So this splitter here that I'm standing on, this will be where the iron ingots are entering this row of constructors. This is kind of a double manifold system here, where the splitter is going to be outputting on both sides. So this splitter will receive the ingots from the north, and then it's going to output ingots to each of these constructors, and also to the splitter directly to its south. Okay. Make sure everything's aligned. The setup that I planned, just working from the amount of ingots we could produce at in-game, we'll be producing 100 modular frames per minute. Like that's the final product for this iron outpost modular frames, and then we'll be producing 180 reinforced iron plates per minute. But 150 of those will be going towards the production of modular frames. Modular frames are the main use for reinforced iron plates, but we're going to want a little bit of a surplus because there are several buildings which require reinforced iron plates. Water extractors, coal generators, etc. So we don't want to use up our entire output, our entire production of reinforced iron plates. This is the 3rd row of 15. And these are outputting towards the middle here with the 2nd row. But here, we can't just merge them on a single belt. That's way too much capacity for even the Mark V belts. We have to use these stack conveyor pulls. Let's count this off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 foundations. That's going to be the max we can do it cleanly. There's another 5. Another 5. And we can end it right here. We need to double all of these up. Okay, let's put down some belts. We're using Mark III for now, that's all we've got, but eventually these will be Mark Vs. I'm a big fan of these glass foundations. And I like that they do change the lighting inside your factories when you're using them. Before, if you were just using foundations, like as a ceiling, it could get a little dark inside your factory because we don't have any lights yet. Now we're going to, how did I do this? I think I just lined them up. Eyeballed it. Sorry, we want mergers here, not splitters. We want them right on top of each other. You need to be fairly accurate with your alignment here. I wish you could hold down control and, snap them perfectly, but it's not an option yet, so just do the best that you can. Because if they're too far off from being perfectly aligned, you may get some weird bell tears and have to replace them. But after you place the first merger, if you do not move the mouse at all and just click a second time, you'll place that second merger directly on top of it. The cursor automatically moves to the upper belt. So this assembly of 60 constructors making screws will produce screws at a rate of 3,000 each minute. And that seems like a crazy number, right? 3,000 screws every minute. But screws are stacked in 500, so that's 6 stacks of screws each minute. But our assemblers that we'll place on the upper level, making 180 reinforced plates, will require 3,000 screws per minute. So it's going to use up every bit of this production of screws. And the assemblers we place for modular frames, they're going to require 2,800 screws per minute. So the need for screws is very real. Now we can use Mark 1 belts here, because these will be made at a rate of 50 per minute, and Mark 1 belts can handle 60 items per minute. So on this side we just put a Mark 1 belt, and if we've aligned it pretty carefully, this one is not aligned. Let's hop up on top of this constructor here. What's the deal? Too far to the left? Yeah. Okay, well, I wanted a merger, not a splitter. What's going on here? Did I put a splitter twice? That's a lot of fail. Okay. There we go. That's aligned. Let's put another one on top of it. I thought I was being pretty precise here, but This just shows the need for the auto snaps. Okay, mergers. It's actually a little bit easier from the top. There we go. Well, as long as you've got one side done, you can be reasonably sure that the other side is also aligned, assuming that you've got your mergers stacked correctly. And now what we're going to do is, how did I put these? Alright, I think that we can just use a conveyor lift here, like this. Flip it around. And at the lowest setting, it should exactly connect with your splitter, your merger. Let's see here. I don't have any screws to test with. And I need some. Oh. We'll just grab these. Okay. So if you put them in the output, we should see them start to travel on the belt. There they go. Okay. Test this. Okay, these are not. For some reason, I don't know why. Sometimes the mergers are not connecting with the belts and the conveyor lifts. See, they're still not connecting. I wonder if it'd actually be better to connect it to the... No, that doesn't work. See, they clearly filled the merger. When I try to deconstruct it, you can see that the buffer is full. I think what we just need to do here is replace this belt. Yep, okay. That's the secret. That'll be annoying, but we need to place the belt after placing the conveyor lift. Okay, oh, this merger is not oriented correctly. That sucks. There we go. Let's test it just to see if this system will work. Yeah, okay. Screws are traveling. Excellent. This merger is not placed correctly. Did I screw all these up? Let's check this out here. The green, like trapezoidal shapes, those indicate the output, and it looks like a significant amount of these mergers rotated when they were being placed. Which is annoying for sure. Yep. This will really slow you down. I think we're just going to assume that they all rotated. Okay. It's probably best to just place the belts after anyway. We'll come back over here and make sure that our mergers are outputting in the correct direction. Okay. Now we'll grab our lifts. And we'll place our center belts again. Alright, there's 3/4 of our first screw array. Now we're going to need splitters. This is going to be the input for the second half of the array, where the ingots enter the constructors. Everything needs to be perfectly aligned because we don't have any space to spare here. And then our last row of constructors, facing away from the splitter. We're just using Mark 1 belts between the splitters and the constructors. You only need 12.5 iron ingots per minute each. I think that's right. And then we'll use our Mark 3 belts between the splitters themselves. And those will be upgraded to Mark 4 and then Mark 5 once we have them. Also, there's really no need to power this entire assembly, even though we're going to go ahead and construct them all. You know, you construct it now, that saves you time later. You don't forget what you need the space for. But there's no need to power more machines than you can handle the output of, right? You know, you don't need to power 60 when your belts can only handle the output of 15 or 20, whatever it is. Yeah, I guess 20, a little more than 20. And so even though they only draw power when they're actively constructing, there are definitely scenarios where you spike your power usage and shut down your grid, and there's not really an easy way to turn it back on without disconnecting machines. So even though I like to build these setups with endgame in mind, I'll only connect them to the power grid with cables as my belts and power grid can support them. So again, Mark 1 belts between the constructors and splitters. Oh, I didn't set these recipes, that's a pain. Let's do that now. It would be great if there were a way to, mass select your constructors or smelters and set their recipes. Something similar to Factorio. I'm still hopeful that eventually we'll get a blueprint feature in Satisfactory that allows us to quickly, replicate these modular builds. I don't know that we need like the blueprints strings like Factorio enables, where you can just copy and paste the string and really quickly implement someone else's design. Personally, I like having to come up with my own initial designs, but I would love to be able to replicate my own designs really quickly. Once you've come up with the design and placed it a few times, there's not a lot of thrilling gameplay and just repeating the same layout over and over. And these late game factories are really large scale operations here. I'm using almost 200 constructors just for iron, and how many different resources are there? A dozen? More? Probably not more than a dozen. Probably about a dozen, I guess. Iron, copper, limestone, caterium, quartz. Sulfur, coal, oil. There's the SAM ore that's not in game yet. So what is that? Like 9 or 10 different resources. With more to come in the future, undoubtedly. Okay, what is this? This is the input, so these are splitters. Flip it around. Let's see. Okay. Just a lot of clicking to get these huge arrays set up. At least they're giving us the teal alignment lines. You know, without that, this would take a lot longer to get perfect. These are Mark 1 belts. Getting stuck pretty frequently here. That's the pitfalls of this really compact build. This is why I generally prefer to leave spaces between, you know, the splitters and the constructors between each other. But when I was pacing out the space that we would need for this many constructors, this was really the only way to fit everything on this floor. Now Mark III belts between the splitters. These ingots, yeah. Okay, the ingots are actually moving already. Come on. Okay, nearly done. Now we have to set up our final line of mergers. To think about how many constructors we actually do need to power while we're using Mark III belts. Mark III belts are limited to 240 items per minute. Each constructor can output 50 screws per minute. So that's 5 constructors for each belt. So yeah, 20. 20 constructors for this array. That's pretty close with my mental math there. Okay. Now this is the output belt. Well, one of the 4 output belts for screws. The next challenge I had when planning this assembly was the inner lane where the conveyor windows are, like how to get 8 belts of screws and 2 belts of plates and at least 1 belt of ingots up to the next floor. So while we've only got 4 windows on the east side, the west side has 4 groups of 3 windows each. So let's see what we've got. We've got this belt of ingots. This belt of ingots can supply all 60 of these constructors. Now it's splitting off here to power to supply the first 2 groups of 15. It's splitting off here to supply the second 2 groups of 15. And those 4 groups altogether will require 750 ingots per minute. So that means we've got 30 ingots per minute remaining on this belt that we'll take up to the next floor for iron rods. Now we have to look at the outputs. The outputs are on either side of the cluster and then 2 in the middle. Both of these belts. The lower belt is from this group to the east. The upper belt is from this group to the west. What are we doing here? And I've just put them on stackable conveyor bowls. 3rd and 4th rung. Now these can come all the way down. The output from this first group here on the outside, we're going to put on I guess this is the 3rd rung of our conveyor poles. And we'll just take these all the way down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is probably far enough. Now this is where it gets tricky. How do we do this without clipping? So we're going to have 4 belts of screws. Where's our 4th belt? Right here. This is our 4th belt. This belt's easy. Okay, it's just going to go right in this first window here. There's 1. The issue is with the other 3. I feel like if we're not careful, we could easily see, yep. Are those clipping? They're clipping, and I hate clipping. I really do. I think I may use a trick that I learned while playing multiplayer. I saw this from a guy named Turbo Killer 89. I'll give him the credit. It's where you can just put a second window directly above. I'm calling them window, they're conveyor walls. And ideally you would have 3 rows, but I don't think we have the room for 3 rows. So let's see if we can get by with 2. Okay, no clipping there. Perfect. So now we've got 3 lanes all going to the windows. And because we've staggered these, it doesn't matter that they're on different levels. They won't interfere when we add our conveyor belts. So you will put a conveyor wall here, and then conveyor lifts. We'll go from here. Not getting the tick, but this looks right. And then the center one. Just like that. And they'll all get to the same place. That works pretty well. No clipping, that's what we care about. That's what I care about. And these will all be screws that we just extend the belts all the way to the wall there. I guess we could technically use a single window. There we go. Looks a little better. And now screws are done. This screw array is completely done from ingot to, oh, let's power it. It's nearly completely done. And we've got our power coming in on the southeast corner here. So we'll power them above the input splitters. Let's just go ahead and make these Mark IIs, even though it's probably not necessary. Now we set 5 from each belt. Would max out our Mark III output belts. So I'm confident that a hard power grid can support this. I'm hopeful that if we plan this right, our power grid will be able to support all of this iron outpost at its current level of production. And then we may need to expand it for the next outpost, which is certainly going to be limestone. I'll need to hunt down a good spot for that, because I don't know where there's a concentration of limestone nodes in the desert. Alright. Now we're powering these 5 from each lane. the LEDs will turn from red to yellow if they've had their recipe selected, and then yellow to green as they get, well, it looks like someone has neglected to connect these splitter belts. To dock his pay for the day. Alright. Now we should see screws traveling on, I guess, all 4 of these belts as the ingots reach the end. Looks like they're not there yet. The LEDs are still flashing yellow. Looks like, are we getting some green at the end? No, well, screws are never going to reach the wall if these merger belts aren't connected. There's really a lot of things you can overlook on these super large assemblies. And I've overlooked most of them. There they are. There are the screws. Alright. 4 lengths of screws. 1 plus 3 over there. Everything's working. And let's quickly, before the episode ends, set up half of our iron plate production. What are we doing? Looks like this is a merger in the center, so I plan to do the standard, very standard setup here. Now we're going to use this entire, we need to have our ingots here. So this is our belt from the second window. This entire belt is going to be plates, iron plates, that we turn into reinforced iron plates at the second level. So we're bringing this down underneath this conveyor belt, really maximizing our space here. Now we're going to put a splitter, actually, yeah, let's put a splitter here. So the splitter will head over here, and we'll continue it down to this second splitter, which will input the second row. Alright, man. That's an efficient use of space right there. So I think we needed, I think it just mimics the smelters below. We have 2 rows of 13. All outputting to a single belt. So they need each cluster below for the smelters is made of 2 rows of 13 smelters, each outputting to a single belt to fill up a Mark V belt with 780 items per minute, items or ingots per minute. Each of these constructors, while each smelter produces 30 ingots per minute, each of these constructors for iron plates will consume 30 ingots per minute, but will only produce 20 plates per minute. That's 13. Oh, is it better to... I guess we could have given ourselves a little more space. Why don't we just go down 1? So we'll put a splitter here. A merger here. Constructor. And this is a splitter. Okay. So the output is here, and it will be taken to this first window on the left. Let's finish setting up our second row of constructors. And consider how many of these we can power, or how many we need to power. If they're producing, I guess the limiting factor here would be the ingots supplying the constructors. So 240 divided by 8, or sorry, divided by 30 would be 8 constructors. So we'll just go ahead and hook up the first 4 constructors. Let's see, these are mergers. Two, 3, 4. So that's 8, 4 on each side. Now we can use Mark 1 belts. And we'll use the Mark 3 belts for now in the center. Well, let's select our recipes. Let's grab some power. I guess I need to set up the inputs too really quickly. Where are the ingots? Okay, obviously something on the ground floor, if we just look it through the glass here. I guess these are unpowered? No, they're blinking. Oh, there we go. You can see the outputs were not connected, so we can fix that between episodes, no problem. So this is a good place to end the episode. Between episodes, I'll fix that mistake down below. I'll fix those outputs, and then I'm just going to complete this level. And it's just going to be like a line of symmetry down the center here. East to west. I need to slide under these belts. There we go. I'll just mirror this on this side with another assembly or another array of 60 constructors producing screws up here in the northeast, and down here in the northwest it'll be another 26 constructors producing iron plates, all going to the conveyor walls to be lifted up to the third floor. The third floor will be the focus of the next episode. It'll be fairly quick. It'll be the assemblers making reinforced iron plates and also modular frames. So thanks for watching. I hope you're having as much fun as I am. Please keep smashing that like button and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see everyone in the next episode. Later.